Egypt's foreign minister condemns Western and international silence on Gaza. Qatar states that Israel has yet to respond to the latest ceasefire proposal for Gaza. And the Russian President Vladimir says Moscow has never opposed Ukraine's potential EU membership.
والله العظيم ولا حبة رز، والله العظيم ولا حبة عدس. ما فيش أكل، ما فيش شرب، عندي بنت 2.5 صارت تشرب.
Egypt's Foreign Minister Badr Abdelati has stated that limiting veto power to 5 nations is outdated and democracy must prevail. Speaking at Slovenia's Bled Strategic Forum, he stressed the urgent need to revive global multilateralism, noting this cannot occur without the UN Security Council reform. Abdelati warned that declining global support for multilateralism is dangerous, citing Africa's exclusion from the Council as a major obstacle. He condemned Western and international silence on Gaza, urging the world to reject genocide. Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi has declared that Israel has committed every form of war crime and violated all principles of international law in Gaza. Speaking at Slovenia's Bled Strategic Forum, he stressed that the world lacks the will, not ideas, to address Gaza's crisis, with 2.3 million Palestinians trapped under siege. El-Safadi accused Israel of imposing famine, criticized double standards, and called for unified international action. He also condemned some states for violating the UN conventions and urged reform of the global institutions to revive multilateralism.
So this is where we are. Question, we all believe in multilateralism. We believe it's the only glue that keeps
it going. In theory, or can it be upheld in practice?
In reality.
Belgium is set to recognize a Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly. The Belgian Foreign Minister Maxime Prévost said this move is done to mark the condemnation of Israel's expansionist ambitions with its settlement programs and military occupations. Prévost said in a post on X, Belgium will join the signatories of the New York Declaration, paving the way for a two-state solution or a Palestinian state coexisting in peace alongside Israel. Egypt has welcomed Belgium's announcement to recognize the State of Palestine during the UN General Assembly's 80th session, calling it a historic step, supporting Palestinian rights and self-determination based on the June 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as the capital. In a statement by the Foreign Ministry, Egypt emphasized this decision alongside similar recent recognitions as a clear expression of broad international backing for Palestine's legitimate aspirations and a rejection of Israel's aggressive policies undermining peace and international law. Egypt urged all nations yet to recognize Palestine to do so promptly to advance a two-state solution and regional stability. And for more analysis, we now move to Rana El Assas in our newsroom. Rana.
Thank you so much, Salma. And for further analysis, we are joined from Cairo by political science professor and specialist in regional and international security, Dr. Ahmed Shahat. Welcome to Qnews, sir. Sir, how does the current veto power structure within the UN Security Council impact conflict resolution and international security, especially in regions like the Middle East, sir?
First of all, good evening to you and to your audience. Hello.
Yes, sir, I can listen to you. I can hear you. Sir?
The issuance of many resolutions, and unfortunately, it stopped the main objective of the Security Council, which is promoting security and safety throughout the world, and it became quite weak and without impact, all for the veto and the selectionism and its inability to put an end to ongoing conflicts and resolutions related to the Middle East or in relation to the Russian-Ukrainian war.
So what are the practical challenges and geopolitical implications of reforming the Security Council to limit or redistribute veto powers?
That a will exists for the key players, for the major nations, knowing that the Security Council has existed since World War II ended and the UN was formulated, and on the course of time other states joined the UN, and nations from Africa followed course, and we wanted to be stable in terms of power and impact on the international theater.
In what ways does Africa's exclusion from permanent representation on the Security Council affect global security dynamics and multilateral cooperation, sir?
It represents a major error and fault because Africa is an important continent and has lots of nations, so there is no stability, no real stability in issuing the resolutions, or because overlooking Africa, which possesses lots of potential, is not right and is not just, and it poses a great challenge to the international system as a whole.
How significant is the decline in global support for multilateralism and weakening international mechanisms for conflict prevention and crisis management?
Naturally, the insistence of the United States to act solely or with no equivalent to stand to it, because they act as the main hegemon or the main sovereign of the international system on an international level. The late Shanghai conference was trying to further stabilize the balance of the international system clearly, and we wanted to, as a fine-tuning to the international system existing now. It was a fine-tuning to it.
From a security perspective, sir, how does international silence or interaction on the Gaza crisis influence regional stability and the broader security environment?
The international organization loses its impact in a clear because they cannot provide the latest ratio of conflict resolution, and it might pose as a mean or a goal for other conflicts to erupt throughout the region and throughout the world.
What role can multilateral institutions realistically play in addressing allegations of war crimes and violations of international law during ongoing conflicts, sir?
They must hold firm on their stances and hold principles on which they were established, and they must avoid dealing with more than one perspective, and they must help to help in resoluting all the conflicts in a just way that takes into consideration to stop the plans for war and to stop the starvation, and to take impactful decisions rightfully and firmly.
Thank you very much. That was Dr. Ahmed Al-Shahad, a political science professor and a specialist in regional and international security from Cairo. Thank you very much for joining us on Qnews. And now we go back to Salma Al-Fay in our studios. Salma.
Thank you, Rana. And Qatar's foreign ministry has stated that Israel has yet to respond to the latest ceasefire proposal for Gaza. It warned that Israel's plan to occupy Gaza threatens everyone, including detainees. And Qatar urged the opening of Gaza's crossings to allow more humanitarian aid and called on the international community to adopt a unified stance to stop Israel. It emphasized that waiting for peace talks is futile, while Israel refuses to pursue peace. The ministry highlighted clear regional and global opposition to Israel's actions. Hamas has accused Israel of using robots loaded with tons of explosives to destroy residential neighborhoods, violating international and humanitarian laws. It condemns Netanyahu's government for waging an open war on innocent civilians in Gaza, executing a plan of genocide and forced displacement. Hamas calls for immediate UN Security Council intervention to hold perpetrators accountable, criticizing the U.S. administration for obstructing international security and justice institutions from halting Israeli crimes. UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy has condemned the man-made famine in Gaza, blaming Israel's systematic starvation and refusal to allow sufficient humanitarian aid. Speaking in the parliament, he urged a comprehensive humanitarian response and a framework for lasting peace. Lammy warned that over 300 people, including 119 children, have died from malnutrition since July. The UK pledged £15 million in aid and medical care, plans to bring injured children to Britain, and threatened to push for Palestinian state recognition at the UN if ceasefire progress stalls.
Crucial NGOs, humanitarians and health workers allowed to operate, and stockpiles of aid on Gaza's borders released. Madam Deputy Speaker.
Gaza-based health authorities have announced that the death toll from Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has climbed to over 63,600 and over 160,900 were wounded. Gaza-based health authorities have reported that Israeli military operations in Gaza had killed 76 Palestinians and injured more than 281 others in the past 24 hours. Gaza's health ministry has reported 13 deaths due to famine and malnutrition in the past 24 hours, including 3 children, and that brings the total hunger-related deaths during the ongoing conflict to 361, with 130 of the victims being children. Since a global hunger monitor declared Gaza to be in famine on August the 22nd, 185 people have died from hunger-related causes. A flotilla of aid boats set sail from Barcelona, aiming to break Israel's naval blockade and deliver humanitarian supplies to Gaza. The global Sumud flotilla mission had earlier returned to port due to rough seas, and among the activists on board are climate advocate Greta Thunberg and actor Liam Cunningham. And as the boats departed, horns blared and chants of "Free, Free Palestine" rang out. Aid delivery to Gaza faces major hurdles, including Israeli inspections, restricted crossings, security threats, and damaged infrastructure, worsening humanitarian needs. The Israeli president is set to visit the Vatican on Thursday for a one-day trip to meet Pope Leo XIV. And citing the president's office, the Times of Israel reported the visit, initiated by the Holy See, will focus on efforts to secure the release of hostages held in Gaza, combating global anti-Semitism, and ensuring the protection of Christian communities in the Middle East. A group of ultra-Orthodox Jewish protesters demonstrated outside an Israeli army recruitment office. Verified footage shared on X showed protesters blocking the entrance to the office and chanting against what they called Israel's army of destruction. In another video, soldiers were seen forcibly removing one demonstrator from the scene. The protest reflects ongoing tensions over efforts to draft ultra-Orthodox men who have traditionally been exempt from military service on religious grounds. Hamas has condemned the arrest of El Khalil Mayor Taysir Abu Snina by the Israeli forces during a dawn raid, linking it to Israel's broader plans to annex occupied West Bank territory. The group accused Israel of dangerously targeting El Khalil, claiming the raid involved a large military force that caused extensive damage to Abu Snina's home. Hamas labeled the arrest a continuation of the occupation's brutal and aggressive approach and urged residents to resist Israeli measures, calling on them to be the protective fence of the national project. And moving on to Sudan, where the Sudan Doctors Network has reported that 18 people were killed and over 100 injured due to artillery shelling by the Rapid Support on neighborhoods in El Fasher. And that comes as the Rapid Support militias have shelled multiple areas in the city, causing significant civilian casualties and widespread distress among local residents. The African Union has urged Sudan to allow humanitarian aid access to victims of a devastating landslide in North Darfur, which killed over 1,000 people. And the AU called for a ceasefire between Sudan's conflicting parties to facilitate aid delivery to those affected. And the landslide struck the Tersin area in Jabal el-Merra in central Darfur, destroying an entire village and causing massive loss of life.
We're trying to make a deal so that there's no destruction and death.
The Iranian parliament has pledged to adopt strategic measures in response to the activation of the trigger mechanism. It asserted that reviving the trigger and reinstating 6 UN resolutions will not significantly impact Iran's economy. During a closed session, the parliament also debated the possibility of Iran withdrawing from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, signaling a potential shift in its nuclear policy amid escalating tensions. The Non-Proliferation Treaty is a key international pact aiming to stop nuclear weapons from spreading and promote global peace and stability. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Baqai has condemned 3 European countries for triggering the sanctions mechanism against Iran, calling it a move driven by Israel and the US. He accused Europe of abandoning its mediator role to unjustly pressure Tehran and questioning their legal authority to do so. Baqai stated that nuclear cooperation with the IAEA remains uncertain, with no active inspections currently. He blamed the US for Gaza's massacres and urged Europe to act independently and emphasized Iran's strategic coordination with Russia and China. Now we move to China, where leaders gather in Tianjin for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, shaping regional cooperation and strategy. Chinese President Xi Jinping has held bilateral talks in Beijing with the presidents of Iran, Turkmenistan, and Mongolia ahead of a major military parade commemorating the end of World War II. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and the leaders of Turkmenistan and Mongolia attended. That comes as over 24 world leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, who also met Xi bilaterally, are participating in the event. Chinese President Xi Jinping has met the Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim in Beijing during the World War II commemorations, attended by over 24 leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin. Earlier this year, Xi toured Southeast Asia, strengthening ties with Malaysia, Vietnam, and Cambodia amid strained U.S. relations. During his Malaysia visit, China and Malaysia signed 31 agreements covering trade, tourism, railways, agriculture. And in August, Malaysia announced China's offer of technical aid in rare earth processing, limited to state-linked companies. Russian President Vladimir Putin has stated that Moscow has never opposed Ukraine's potential EU membership, but views NATO expansion as a different issue. Speaking from China, he dismissed European fears of Russian attacks deeper into Europe as hysteria. And Putin claimed Russia's 2022 actions were reactions to Western and NATO attempts to dominate the post-Soviet space, threatening Russian security. He mentioned discussing Ukraine's security with US President Donald Trump and expressed optimism about finding consensus to ensure security if the conflict ends.
В ответ украинская сторона пытается нанести ущерб нам.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte has said NATO takes the jamming of the GPS signals very seriously, and the alliance is working day and night to prevent that jamming, to ensure they will not do it again. And the GPS system of the European Commission, President Ursula von der Leyen's airplane was jammed while en route on Sunday to Bulgaria. Russian interference was suspected, and the Russian government did not immediately reply to a request for comment. In a statement, Bulgaria's government said the GPS signal was lost as von der Leyen's plane approached the southern city of Plovdiv, prompting air traffic controllers to switch to ground-based navigation systems to ensure a safe landing.
Etc. And we have agreed on policies there to really be...
Vietnam celebrated the 80th anniversary of its declaration of independence with its largest military parade in decades. The parade featured advanced military hardware, tanks, missiles, helicopters, and fighter jets, alongside thousands of troops, including personnel from China, Russia, and other nations. Naval celebrations were also held by the Cam Rana Bay, showcasing submarines and frigates, and mostly Russian-made. The parade featured advanced military hardware, tanks, missiles, helicopters, and fighter jets, alongside thousands of troops, including personnel from China, Russia, and other nations. The Serbian president and Slovak prime minister have arrived in Beijing to attend China's massive military parade, marking the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. And hosted by President Xi Jinping, the September 3rd Victory Day event will feature over 20 world leaders, including Russia's Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. The parade aims to spotlight China's military power and rising global influence amid warning U.S. engagement under President Trump. A dramatic display of hypersonic missiles, drones, and joint appearances by Xi, Putin, and Kim is expected to send a strong signal of solidarity against Western dominance, a moment some are calling the emergence of an axis of upheaval. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin, and here's what we have been covering. Egypt's foreign minister condemns Western and international silence on Gaza. Qatar states that Israel has yet to respond to the latest ceasefire proposal for Gaza. And the Russian President Vladimir says Moscow has never opposed Ukraine's potential EU membership. This concludes our news bulletin for the hour, and don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more updates on Q News.